welcome to episode 4 of Are You Done Yet? I'm Mike Taylor with Innovative E. As always, I have with me my co-host Bryan Quick.
Hey, welcome back, everybody.
And today we have a special guest, our very own Matt Froelich, our Vice President of Project and Work Solutions and Business Intelligence.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, Bryan, you want to get us kicked off today?
Sure, it's great to be back here at Are You Done Yet? We've put in 3 solid episodes and got some really great content out of it. And what happens when we all get together is great minds just kind of think about great things to talk about, how they can relate about project work management solutions for our customers. And we're able to really put that in a casual kind of humor-centric sort of way. And it's been a lot of fun. And hey, Matt, how you doing today?
Not too bad. Just coming off the weekend.
Awesome.
Yeah, as we all are. And Matt, your official title is what now with Innovative E, Vice President of
a lot of letters.
Is it
There's
like
a lot of letters.
Project Management Ninja? Is that what I'm gathering?
There's a lot of letters. It's VP of Project and Work Solutions, as Mike said, and Business Intelligence. I also lead up our product offerings component of Innovative E.
And that all means that, Matt, you're the brains behind the operation here. So the reason that we're all here. So, Mike, I know that you wanted to kind of, summarize a little bit about, what Matt brings to the table here and what we do here at Innovative E. So I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thanks, Bryan. Welcome again, Matt. So in the last few episodes, we've interviewed a few other people like Tad Haas from Edison. We've talked a little bit at a high level about some of our various partnerships, but kind of resetting the framework of what Innovative E is all about and what we bring to the table. We're really about project and work management solutions. We do custom development, and we have a lot of technology partners. The 3 technology partners we have are, number one, Microsoft. We're one of many of the Microsoft partners that are out there in the ecosystem. The work management components of the Microsoft relationship have always included for us the kind of the SharePoint collaboration space, probably more importantly, the project products like Project Online, Project Planner, now Project for the Web, and of course, now emerging is the Power Platform, the Power Apps, and those kinds of things. So that's kind of the framework of there that we would deal with, and that space is the base platform. On top of that, we have Edison 365. Edison 365 works in those spaces that are around work and project management that we've seen, and there's a lot of gaps in there in the base platform. So things like ideation, business case, more robust interface and detailed reporting and things like that around project management. And then, of course, their data store product, which helps with aggregation and business intelligence, which is awesome. And then lastly, a new partner that we have that we just signed a relationship with a few months ago is Tasktop. And we're really excited about that because they bring some really robust systems integration capability with the various Microsoft products, third-party products, which really goes back to this whole thing that we've talked about a lot, where when you really want to enable people to do work the way they want to do it, so maybe they're working in an agile type format like Jira or something like that, or Servicenow, and be able to integrate that with the Microsoft core products and the reporting that needs to come out of it. So that's kind of at a high level with the technology, why we picked these partners, the primary partners we have. And of course, Matt's been involved in architecting probably hundreds of solutions, right, for dozens and dozens or maybe hundreds of customers in various different capacities along all these different lines. So we thought it'd really be good to kind of introduce Matt to the podcast and have him on and some of his team on in future episodes to really drill down more into that. And I think today we'll probably take kind of more of a high level into these different areas. So, yep, that's what that's all about.
Excellent. Yeah, Matt, you keep us honest too. Like Mike and I will come on these podcasts and we'll say, hey, this stuff does this and it does that, and it can walk on water. And you're like, no, it doesn't do that.
No, I mean, generally speaking, any new tech, it's always advertised as the silver bullet to everything this or everything that. And it's not. Nothing is. Right. It all requires work. It all requires elbow grease. It all requires you to do something and think about things and also work within the framework that it's offering you. Any one of the tools, right? Some are more restrictive For sure. You can get stuff that's more boxed up and it's very narrow focused. It does this thing one way. And that might work for you in a lot of regards. There's a lot of integration tools out there that do just that. They work this path. And this path might be the path you work with. So that might be the tool for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on that, I was going to say, Matt, one of the things that we've always talked a lot about is also it's not just the technology component. At the end of the day, we've got to build robust solutions that people can actually use. So there's the process component around that. There's the process component of how you maintain whatever this thing that you build with these tools is. And then there's the people components of it, the training of the end users, but also the people that support it. So all these things go into with the application of these technologies, right?
For sure. But and honestly, part of the reason we've chosen the partners that we've chosen from a technology standpoint is all of the tools, all of the tech is flexible. You do have a sandbox. It does have walls to work within, but it's either A or B. You can't do C. C doesn't exist. That's not how we've chosen where we want to go with this with any of our partners. They all have flexibility and allow for the tool bending to the organization and the processes, but also the organization being able to successfully bend to the tool. Neither one has to break, and that's a key component to how we offer our solutions.
Well, that's really thought-provoking. Now, I remember when we were talking about, hey, we need an integration solution, because we were getting a lot of customers coming to us, and they were saying, well, we're doing agile work, we're doing work here, we need to incorporate, the project portfolio management with a line of business system. And there's a lot of point solutions out there, to your point. Talk a little bit about Tasktop and what was special about that. Why did we navigate that way? Because I think that partnership is really something that we bring to the table that's really a quality partnership that our customers can take advantage of.
For sure. So Tasktop is interesting because it is a framework, it is a model, it is a whole plethora of connections to different tools out there, from ALM tools to project management tools to even some database tools, right? It kind of hits all different places in a way that actually is intuitive to users, because it's not, you will integrate X to Y and build this pipe. You can build this pipe for now. Next week, and you've determined you have a different use case, you can add an ancillary pipe or change the pipe a little bit without redoing the integration altogether, without rewriting it if it were custom. I mean, obviously, if anybody goes down the path of a custom dev thing, you get exactly what you want because you're starting from a blank piece of paper.
Right.
So, but that's expensive. And it's expensive to maintain.
Assuming that you have the skills or the money to get exactly what you want.
Yeah, and the foresight to understand what you're looking for, because a lot of what we find is, I need to move data. Okay, what data do you need to move and why? Why is a key question here, because sometimes it might just mean I have data over here and I have data over here, and I don't really need them to talk to each other, but I need to be able to see them together. And now that's a different story. That's a different style of integration. And something like the Power Platform, Power BI, solves that without having to do a pipe between the two.
On that pipe, though, one of the things that we've seen is when people have written their own custom integrations and those kinds of things, is, you mentioned it just really quickly, but I want to go back in on is the maintenance of it, right? So Tasktop does what, 51 connection points between their hub, I think.
And they add something new every quarter.
Right.
And the key that one of the key things they do is they are constantly battering against all of the REST APIs that all the tools and components they connect to on a nightly basis.
Right. So they're running integration tests with all of these
Right.
tools on a nightly basis. So they're going to probably be even ahead of the customers if in finding an issue. If want somebody at ServiceNow or Jira or Microsoft or somebody makes a change that maybe breaks something or changes the behavior of it, they're going to be ahead of it and be able to say, hey, not only do we know it, but we already have a fix for it, which is so much. And guess what? You don't have to pay anything else for it. It's part of your subscription.
Oh.
APIs change. I mean, do they change nightly? No. But
Mm-hmm.
if they offered a new feature that you're now taking advantage of, you might have an API change. If they're deprecating a way of doing things, but they replaced it with something else, you have an API change. While that is not a earth-shattering revelation, it is still something to be aware of. And if you have companies out there that you're buying tools from that are actually keeping that up before you even see the problem, because you're likely behind on your update to your software. They're not. They're getting the beta versions. They're getting the stuff that is always up to date to ensure that their components are still working no matter what.
Okay.
And this is that whole new world. It's been around for a few years now, but it's the continuous integration cycles, right? And everybody's going through them. So when you buy a product like this, it's working with the continuous integration cycles of all the other pieces that are being integrated as well. Yep.
I mean, yeah. So it does offer a significant way of thinking about it, and it's visual. So the model that you build, you can see, oh, I have data that goes from here to here, and I have data that goes from here to this other place. But I don't want data to come back from here over here. So I block all that, and you can kind of make your spider web of integrations across all your tools be what you need it to be. Now, of course, you are limited to the APIs and what each vendor exposes for read write, but you're limited to that if you were doing a custom. So you're limited, period. But you don't have to know about the APIs. The tool does it for you.
You also talked a little bit about when you're talking about creating that visual map, there's modeling that can be done with that as well, right? I mean, you can make some conditional statements and things like that are pretty easy to do without having to go to code to do it.
You can put expressions and you can even extend it. There are extensions for it where you can write in some JavaScript into it if you find that unique little case that you need to deal with.
Right. What are some customer scenarios? I can think of a couple of different customer scenarios where this has come up, and we've thought about or are currently talking to customers about using Tasktop. One of them is at a major healthcare provider, and it's about ServiceNow integration with projects online. Can you talk a little bit about what that scenario was and how Tasktop was able to help with that?
So yeah, one of the things that ServiceNow, like any of these tools are, they have different categories, different types of items, we'll call it, because items is a nice generic word. It could be an incident. It could be a request. It could be it could be an enhancement. You go through all these different types of objects that you're trying to work with. Now Tasktop and go, oh, I have a track for incidents. I have a track for this. I have a track for that, and they all function differently. Or I don't want to talk about it, just a general, help desk ticket. I don't want somebody I don't want data going into some other tool that's just, my keyboard broke, I spilled coffee on it. Can you come and deal with that, IT? Sure, but that's all it is. Here's your new one. I'll take the old one and I'll junk it for you. There's no integration of data needed for that.
Right.
So you can skip that line and you can not worry about it. And that's what Tasktop is actually doing for it.
Interesting.
So that's the kind of the detail of what it was doing, but I think at a high level, wasn't there some scenario around where, like in this particular case, we had helped build a project management system where they were doing a lot of timekeeping and data entry, and without that integration component, there was a lot of duplicate entry that was having to happen in multiple systems. And that was one pain point. And secondly, in certain cases, it wasn't being done because it required additional work, and so the quality of data over,
Sure.
and the project management system was not nearly as granular as they wanted. So with that integration, with everything you just said, you're able to do all those things and get the right information at the right time in the right system.
Correct. Yeah, that's a significant point there, Mike. It doesn't integrations by and large. Not only they do three key kind of pillars. They allow people to work in the tools that they need to work into, right? I need to be in this side. I need to be in that side. I don't want to be in both. That's key. The other thing that they do is they force standardization because the data, you have to follow for each line, each track that you create, each model, you have to follow a
logic
rule,
path,
right?
Yeah.
You can't just when you do human integration and I want to say, I can see this is a number 2, I move number 2 over here. This is a number 3, I can do that. But you're doing the business rule, but you're doing it because you know it. But if you put that through a computer, it doesn't tell me what 2 means. But when now everything means the same thing, you have to all play by the same business rules. So that the integration enforces better standardization, which in turn increases that value of the data as a whole.
Right. A lot of that time that's being spent in manual data entry and things like that, we have to, when you're thinking about doing an integration project, it's really important to understand what decisions, even if they're not documented, are being made during those manual processes. And that's what we'll do. We come in there and we kind of do an assessment. We dig in a little bit to what's going on.
I mean, all of our simplest behaviors have rules and processes that we follow. You can't just make toast by thinking I want to make toast. It doesn't work that way. There are steps, however, all subconscious steps, and you just do them because that's how you do it.
Yeah. And now you have to not document it. Yeah.
Right.
And the computer has to actually know the rules. So that's a key point there. Why is it always toast that people use an example?
Because toast is one of those.
Toast.
When I went to school, I was forced to describe that in programming logic, and I'm like, oh, it's 2 steps. There's a lot more because I don't ever think about it. You don't ever think about it. You just don't, because you're conditioned to know how to do it without thinking.
Right.
But if you need to tell somebody who's never heard of toast ever, they're going to look at you like, you do what now? Why are you doing this?
Right.
I don't get it.
And the steps are very sequential, right?
And it's easy for everybody to see how, oh yeah, there are a lot of steps, but I don't ever think about it.
Right. That's funny. So let's kind of talk. You mentioned this a little bit earlier. You mentioned the Power Platform a little bit earlier. We're starting to do more with it. We're starting to look at that as directionally where we can solve some pretty big business process issues and challenges that our customers are having. If you're using spreadsheets for some of your business processes today, why do you guys think that Power Platform provides a unique opportunity to automate some of that? Why is it different now than it was before?
I'm not sure how to say how it was before, but it provides. The Power Platform is built upon the Common Data Service. I'm sure you guys have talked about it or you've heard about it at some point.
Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit. And why don't you go into a little bit of detail for our audience about what the Common Data Service means?
So, generally speaking, if you're familiar with Dynamics 365, Dynamics 365 is the first thing that kind of runs on all this stuff, and it's been there for a long time. And now Microsoft's putting other stuff. Power Platform is a significant part of that. In fact, a lot of the when we talk about Power Platform and talk about Power Apps, there's 2 different versions of Power Apps, and I will say a lot of the salesier people will talk about it in terms.
You're not talking about Mike and I, are you? When you mention
I'm talking about in general. I'm talking in generalization. We'll speak to their phone. because that's what people think about as an app, right?
Right.
We don't think about applications anymore. We only think about apps that show up on our phone that I can go download and I can do. So when people think about power apps and what's out there, they're thinking about a Canvas app that is totally available, and it comes in a form factor of a tablet or a phone.
So it makes the modern interface for these varying platforms very simple to render in what Microsoft likes to call the low code or no code solution.
Right. Then there's the model driven app, which is what Dynamics is all built on, right? All those things if you've ever looked at CRM, you've ever looked at any of those components, they're all model driven apps, which are more friendly to a desktop.
Okay.
Like, you wouldn't want to open a Canvas app that's this form factored thing on your phone in the middle of your screen. It doesn't make any sense. It's like it's built to be touched, not to be clicked. But both of these have different paradigms and different reasons for usage, I should say. And they have their box that you have to play with it. Right. So you have not limited, but you have the tools and building blocks that Microsoft provides for each one of them. And they do different things for different reasons, and they have a different look and feel to them. Model driven apps now, as of recently, Microsoft's been doing a lot of merging of things and getting things more available, is now mobile friendly, which means it's more, call it, responsive design. So even though you have this screen that is laid out for a nice 1440 resolution, you can now view it on your phone, and it just kind of collapses and starts looking a little significantly different, but it's still available, still can be clicked on, still can be done with. So that's a pretty big thing recently. The other component to that is the model driven app is more flexible and bigger, so you can do a lot more with it. And as Mike pointed out, low code, no code is the mantra. However, what you're doing is you're taking and building data models and entities within the CDS that you can surface in different ways, in different views, in different forms in these model driven apps or in the Canvas apps as well. So what the long and short of it, when you're thinking about what's Power Apps, it's actually two significantly big components. It's not just Canvas that's apps. It's not what's just publicized out there as here's the Canvas app. It's also the model apps. And usually what we would end up seeing is a lot of our customers that want us to replace their business process and exactly what you said on Excel. They're already doing that stuff on their desktop, so that makes more sense to put it in a model driven app. When you're talking about things like order forms or field services, that doesn't make any sense. You're not walking around with a laptop, you're walking around with a tablet or your phone, and you want to just say, let me update this list item. That's easier from a Canvas app. So it comes down to evaluating what your need is, evaluating what the process is, and determining the right solution for the right reasons.
Continues to just blows my mind, Matt. Customer after customer we talk to, what they're doing in Excel is they're almost building software.
Oh yeah.
It's
I wrote Tetris in Excel.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like they're basically posting an Excel spreadsheet somewhere, in a common area, and they almost create what looks like a UI in a sheet. And they're like, okay, you guys come in here and you fill this out, and you go to this tab and you fill this out. And sometimes one tab populates the other, and so forth and so on. And they have multiple people going into the same sheet and co-authoring it. Some folks aren't even using that. It's not an enterprise, a viable long-term solution, but it's what they have. What's what they know, and it's what they have kind of at their disposal without having to call IT and create something.
Calling IT and having them create stuff is expensive, not because they have to pay for it, but because it's time consuming.
And it doesn't necessarily get done, right? I mean, that's the thing.
They have a
long backlog
process, right?
And that's why this self-service stuff I think is very interesting. And the low code, no code. And we all know, and we've had a lot of internal discussions and debates about how far that can go. I think, at the high level, it can start to replace some of the things like you're talking about, Brian, like some of this Excel stuff, because people can go in and they can start doing something with the basic Power Apps to do some smaller kind of prototyping and build maybe in smaller work group apps without a whole lot of assistance from, IT or a third party like us. When it starts to get bigger, though, and like we talked about before, when you start to get into the people and process and technologies, and you start to develop kind of a software development lifecycle around this thing that you're building, selecting the right components like Matt's talking about, then building the right processes around it and building the right, best practice development, so to speak, around these things becomes a lot more important.
I think that's the promise of it, Mike, right? Is the ability for that same person that is dangerous in Excel, and maybe can be dangerous in Power BI, to transfer some of those low code skills, their ability to, pull the community together, pull the business rules together, figure out the business rules, and build a Power App on their own. Now, there's I think that's the promise of it. And there's some people out there that, they're equipped and they have enough information. They've watched enough YouTube videos to go do that. How can Innovative E help those folks that want to do that, but just kind of need to get a kickstart?
Well, it's a great question. There's a lot to it. Is it easy enough to go and add a custom field, create an entity? Sure. I mean, a lot of that's kind of point and click. I made this entity, I did this, I did that. But what is not there, and as I said before, these are all building blocks, right? You have to, before you can make an app, you need to have a data set. You need to have something in the CDS. And data sets and how good they are and how they operate are really something that requires a little bit of forethought. And that's where your Excel folks might struggle, because Excel doesn't care about that. You do whatever you want to do and you just kind of make it happen and it works itself out. But I need to have this entity related to this entity and that related to that entity. Well, some people might just start off with, I'll just make one big entity, which is fine until you realize that you have too much data and now it doesn't operate well.
Right.
So now you should have broken it up. But now how do you get the data to talk to all these different components, which is not intuitive? And then you start to say, okay, I need a Power Automate that says when something over here happens, I have to move something and rewrite and connect this data to that data, because it's not necessarily just, it doesn't magically show up here. You can have one entity that's related to an entity and it's a parent and child, and it can absorb and expand off of that, but it's not, you just jump 2 feet into the pool and you're like, I didn't know what I was expecting to find. So that's before you even get to the concept of building an app out. You just figured out what your data looks like. So you start to do that. You get that in place.
So if that's you have that pedigree and you come from, you take that mindset into it, where you've built applications before, then you're really well equipped to hit the ground running here. But if you need some help, we've done that. We've been around the block in that regard, and we bring that mindset to the table, help expedite really the whole process of this.
That's exactly it. If you don't know, while you can get started quickly, if somebody already had a data model for you, this is where the paradigm of, I think Microsoft really wants people to go. I think what they want is, well, we want everyone to make an app, to be able to feel empowered to make an app.
To empower them, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, if you have nothing to work with, you don't have the pieces to make the app. So you need somebody, you either need to have the rigor in how you've already thought about building apps. So you've done it the hard way. You've done it coding straight up. And you can't do coding straight up unless you've thought about, what is the end result? What's the process? What does it actually look like? What is the data model I'm trying to capture actually makes sense? So if you have that, as you said, that skill set, then Power Apps, you can kind of get in. Then it's kind of a syntax thing here, syntax thing here. What do I click? Oh, I need to move around here. You can kind of Google some of that stuff or Bing some of that stuff and figure it out. But it's, if you don't have that and you don't have anybody that does that, well, now you need a little bit of a different story to help you out. And we do this all the time with people for Power BI. They have a database. They understand how to access a database. They don't understand how
build the visualizations
to write SQL, SQL, and they don't understand DAX, and they don't understand some of the expressions that Power BI has in play because it's a whole other language. So what we can do to help people out is we can provide a data set in whatever tool you're using. So if it's SQL, we can provide a view or a couple of views or SQL code or a stored procedure to get to the data set you want. Therefore, you don't even need to know what's driving it underneath. You don't need to know this table versus that table. You just need to know, I need this, and now I have my data, and now I can go through and create my visualizations with the drag and drop components that everyone loves. But how do you get there? That you need
everybody
something to get
can
there.
be a Power Apps ninja with innovative. Is that what you're saying?
Well, sure.
The elephant in the room is the swords on
Matt's
the wall.
gonna lend him one of his swords. Just don't hurt yourself.
But I mean, and Power Apps, you can go even further, right? You can take a step further and say, you know what, this Canvas app, or more specifically this model app, I don't like the controls that I want to play with. I don't like some of these building blocks. Okay, well, we've just stepped away from low code, no code to all code.
Right.
And that's not a big deal because what can be done is a partner like us or technology company like us can create a control for you and install it, and then you can use it for whatever you want.
So you don't have to hand us the keys. I mean, we're flexible options for anything from just to be over your shoulder or a guide to training to just being available for assistance. We're evolving to this low code way of working with you, so it's not like a big statement of work maybe anymore. It's different,
right? And it's just it's a different way of thinking. But if you're provided with a module or a control or even a data set, like, oh, we want to extend project for the web, cool, well, we have this whole baseline function, and all the entities that go along with it, we can install all that.
Okay.
And then you're off to do what you need to do and create different apps based off of that data set that you didn't have before and you didn't want to learn to do. Now you can get to your drag and drop. So
there's
it's all
a
about
customer
how to get to it.
that we have that you just kind of alluded to. There's a customer we've been talking to. We've been doing a lot of really great work for them. And you built, well, first of all, without going into too much detail, we used the Power Platform, Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI, kind of in concert for this customer, the trifecta, if you will. They're using Project for the web for the schedules, but they had some pretty unique needs in terms of categorizing those tasks.
Sure.
Talk about that.
One of the things, so what we accomplished was Project for the web. It at the moment doesn't allow for custom fields. You're allowed whatever, what you see is what you get. Very WYSIWYG. That's okay.
Right.
But with Power Apps, because it's built on the Power Platform, we can extend it. So what we did is we extended the task entity to a couple different things, to include things like baseline, to include things like categorization of tasks. Now, when a task was categorized to a particular type of like 8 or 9 different types, it triggered Power Automates to go and move to add additional data to a different entity that can then be altered by the user, and they can fill in additional things, because we don't need all these dates associated to all the tasks, maybe only 3 of them.
Right.
And then because of that, entity is moved over here. We have another view that aggregates it all in one view by project. So now you have by project, you can't touch the project, can't touch the task name, but you can touch all the data and you can kind of do a bulk edit on all the data across all of your projects for this slice and that slice and the other slice, right? So you can kind of
Yeah.
get all of these at the same time, which is something, honestly,
You couldn't do it
Project
before.
Online, people,
Yeah.
customers wanted for Project Online, and it just really wasn't possible because Project Online built an entity for a project, an entity for that project.
Right.
So this is a different way of looking at the data.
Yeah, so the cuffs are off a little bit, in terms of, the limitations of Project Online, previously limitations. You have Project for the web, and that's an app built on a common data service in itself, but itself, is limited in some way. But here's an example of how we were able to extend it and create one solution.
It's all about which building blocks and which tools you have to play with, right? Project Online is a fantastic tool that's really robust and really big, and you can do a lot with it, but there are particular ways that you have to interact with it.
Right.
And if you try to make it not that way, you are fighting the tool, and fighting the tool really only hurts you.
Which is one of the things we've talked about for years. It doesn't matter if it's SharePoint Project Online, if it's Dynamics, any of the tools and things that we've worked with over the years. We see sometimes customers, sometimes other partners will go in and say, I don't like the way the tool works. So they start doing all this customization and configuration around the tool, rather than first understanding. And I think it's a lot of the conversation you've had today here, Matt, is really important for people to understand if they want to get into like the Power Platform and use it. It's understand the tool. Understand what it does well, understand why it works the way it does. So, training, resources that are out there. We're trying to make more resources available. Microsoft has our Power App in a Day classes and things like this. Understand what the technology can and can't do before you try to start saying, I don't like the way it works, so I'm going to try to make it work a different way. You may have to go to solve a certain problem, but really understand the fundamentals first. And the core building blocks and how it all works.
That's a great discussion. One of the things that brought me to Innovative E is, sort of our ability to expand on customer relationships and retain customer relationships, and make sure that we're always in tune with what the next thing that these folks need are. We're not really a one and done shop. How did it evolve that way, guys? I mean, how did we get to that point?
You want to go first, Matt?
I think for me personally, it's always been, I got into consulting, into this business, because I truly enjoy seeing success for customers. And I don't mean like, I walk in and I can give you a project. It started, it finished. Here you go. Have a good day. I don't, we're done. It really came down to, I want to see you succeed, and I want to be a part of that success. It's not from necessarily a selfish reason, but from I enjoy solving puzzles, and the longer it goes, the more puzzles there are to solve, and I want to be there to help solve those for customers. And that's why I wanted to do this.
Yeah, that's really great.
That's great. And I think, so Matt's been a big part of the kind of the transition we've made over the last, I'd say 5-6 years. And now you're a part of it, and happy to have you here, Bryan. And that is that when you build these types of things, it doesn't matter what the core technology is. You build a business solution or a business application that's built on various technology components. If it provides value, it's inevitably going to require ongoing kind of care and feeding to continue to morph to the evolving business needs. Business challenges can come up. You may decide to continue to extend it, and we've seen customers do this. We took an approach years ago, and it's where we moved into, both through some formal study and through just evolutionary organic, kind of our 3-step process of really laying the foundation, working the enablement, and then the sustainment services piece. And that's, I think, one of the things you've seen, Bryan, that as we've continued to kind of evolve these things, is we've worked out a way that gives a very flexible framework for our customers to be engaged and to use our services as they need to, at whatever level they need to, as appropriate for what they have, their capabilities are, what budget they want to have and put into it versus spending the dollars internally or somewhere else, and being able to do it in a way oftentimes that starts kind of small, builds the value, they can see it, and then they can decide they want to continue to invest in it. But the sustainment component is really critical, whether it's an external partner like us or some of our customers have built their own teams and over a period of years basically transitioned away and they do most of the work, heavy lift now. But the same concept applies. If you're going to build something that requires, that's going to provide a lot of value, it's going to require an ongoing sustainment component to it. And that's been, I think, probably part of the secret to our success in these engagements and longer term relationships. In some cases, we have customers we've been with for 14 years, many customers 5, 6, 7 years or more. And it's because we take this approach. And I think also at the core of who we are, just to like Matt said, I think we all do care. We want to see people be successful. We've seen throughout all of our careers, and everybody's seen, the things of how many times people try to do something and it's not successful.
Right.
And so when you see it done and you see it done well, and you're a part of that, and the customers and their organization get excited about it, and even to the point of part of our mission statement is about improving lives. We've actually had customers tell us we really have been able to improve trust. We've been able to improve the quality of our teams' everyday lives because that now their constituents, because of these systems that we built and maintained over time and enhanced, they become reliant on them, and they are using them to have predictable, reliable, recurring results in business success, and it reduces stress on doing a lot of things that are more ad hoc, right? I mean, when you have one of our big, you mentioned the healthcare providers, it happens to be one of the same healthcare providers, we have a lot, but they mentioned to us just recently that through the whole COVID thing, they were able to pivot, and I think we talked about this in one of the other podcasts, very quickly to the needs, the things that were put on them to continue to do the work they needed to do and work to put a large number of people at work from home, because they did have these systems in place and people trusted them, and it was really it was a very powerful moment for them.
We ask why a lot. And it's not like in a negative concept, right? Like I don't go, well, why do you want to do that? That's stupid. That's not what I mean. It's just why? What are you trying to solve? What do you want to solve? Like we don't just take orders,
instruction, right?
And like, say, here's
what I
do this. And it's like, that's fine, but why? If you give us a little bit of inkling as to why, there might be a different way that's easier and more cost effective and better in the long term. We don't know without asking that question.
And sometimes we walk away from services or revenue dollars from product because of that, because we say, look, yeah, you want to build it this way, we could go build that for you, but there's a much more effective way to do it. And maybe that's something we provide. And sometimes we recommend and say, no, here, you could do this yourself, or there's a different way to do it. Because I think we honestly want people to have the best solution for the future.
It's right. About being successful. I mean, because if they're not successful, it doesn't make a difference what we did.
Right.
I mean, what we did is pointless. I mean, it really is. If they're not successful.
Long-term success.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really deep. That's really something, guys. I mean, that's kind of a differentiator, if you ask me. It's what makes me wakes me up in the morning and gets me down, to work. It's about helping people, empowering our customers to improve lives. Hey, man, what do you think about a regular segment on the Are You Done Yet podcast? We could call it like From the Dojo.
No, I mean, this has been fun. You guys asked me to come on, and I really wasn't sure what to expect. I'm not usually a on-camera type of guy, but no, this has been fun.
No, I think it was really, really good discussion. A lot of folks are probably going to take a lot away from it. And thanks for coming today. It's really, really great.
Yep. Thanks, Matt.
For having me.
Thanks, Bryan.
Appreciate it.
Good day. Virtual high five. We did this with
virtual high five. Yeah. Episode 4 of Are You Done Yet in the bag.